Hello, everyone. My name is Lola Afolabi. I am the founder of Healthy Credit Habits. Welcome to this week's installation of Fix It Friday. Our topic this week is late payments. Now, I don't know about you, but I've missed a payment or two in my lifetime. I'm not bragging about it, but it's one in which I can at least acknowledge that, I haven't always been on time with payments in the past. And you often don't think about the impact to your credit score as a result of those late payments. One thing for certain is that I definitely didn't make a habit of it. It was usually either something related to me not setting up my automated bill pay, me not necessarily tracking my due date. But, that's been since past, and I've definitely learned my own lessons. And I hope that my goal today is to not only educate you on what happens from a credit score perspective when you are late on payments, but to also provide some suggestions on what you can do if you find yourself in this type of situation. So let's dive right in. Now, I was reading an article, a Forbes article dated 2014 sometime. It was really, really, really informative. I felt that the information was still very relevant to today. It's not like people stopped making late payments back in 2014. We're still in 2018, and, more than probably ever before, more people are finding themselves behind on payments due to various reasons. Now, one thing interesting about this article was that 1 in 3 Americans with a credit file has been reported to the bureaus for a late payment. Now, that can be a credit card, that can be a student loan, that can be a medical debt. Anything pretty much that you have necessarily not paid on time and it's lapsed for a period in time, you've been reported to the bureau. So if you base that on today, let's say you have an account that's past due and it's negatively reporting on your credit report, it would not be until 2025 that account would fall off of your credit report naturally just from any derogatories. Usually it takes 7 years for those accounts to fall off on their own. Now, if we dive into just late payments generally, frame by frame, so we'll kind of break it up into different time segments to give you an idea of what happens. If you look at, let's say you have an account that is due, payment is due today, and you're 1 to 29 days late, what happens? Well, your payment history accounts for 35% of your credit score, and that's a significant amount. What will happen is you may be subject to an interest rate increase. Now, a lot of creditors, they will increase your interest rate if you are late on your credit card payment, and sometimes you don't know. You just may realize, hey, it seems like that balance is kind of compounding a little faster than you're used to. Oftentimes that can be because the interest rate that you previously had, it changed as a result of you having a late payment on your file. So you may want to contact your creditor and find out, hey, did my interest rate change at any point in time? And what was the deciding factor for that being the case? In addition to the interest rate going up, you also may experience a late fee being assessed. Now, if you're not a habitual late payment consumer, then you will find this pretty easy where the card issuer or creditor, they're willing to work with you. They're willing to waive your late payment out of goodwill. But however, you definitely have to be cognizant of that because many creditors, they do have a cap on how many goodwill adjustments from a late payment perspective they will offer just because. If we move forward, let's say you're 30 to 59 days late on a bill. Now, you're not 60, but you're 59. You're kind of looking over the edge, but you're not yet ready to jump into that 60-day late. What happens if you find yourself in this particular arena? Well, this is where that late payment will get reported to the credit bureaus. And that's where the impacts to your credit score, that's when the story begins. In addition to that, you also will be assessed a second late fee. So you got the first late fee for being late after your payment due date. And then you got hit with another late payment once you crept into that 30 to 59 day late time frame. Now, usually when you're in that second late payment category, some creditors, depending on the relationship that you have, they may or may not be willing to negotiate waiving those late payments, but it's worth your while to ask. You never know. If you don't ask, you won't know. So they may waive one or both or none, but it's definitely worth asking. If you have a good story, they may be willing to work with you. This is also where once it has been reported on your credit report, now this is a fresh late. You know, fresh lates are always harder for us in the credit repair, credit restoration industry to dispute because the ink is still wet on that late payment. You know, it's harder to dispute something that's at the top of the mail file at the creditor's office when you're saying, hey, I don't know if my client was, 30 days late. They might have been 29 and a couple of hours. So you definitely want to be mindful of that. But due to that, usually you'll see a 60 to a 110 point drop in your credit score because of this late payment. Now, if I were to give an example of what a 30 to 100 point drop in your credit score looked like, imagine yourself at a ski slope and you're not, let's say, an avid skier, but you're on a black diamond and it's pretty slick out there and you just kind of took an incline real quick. That's what happens with your credit score once that late payment hits. It just takes a nosedive. Now, you definitely don't want to find yourself in that situation by all means, because once it starts to go down, that slope just gets a little steeper and it seems to be some sort of compound effect that just magically happens. And then you don't even know how you got there, and then we're having a conversation about, well, tell me about these late payments. So let's just make sure that you're definitely aware of what's happening, how late you are, and try to get ahead of it if you can. The recovery period of a 30-day late payment on your credit report is 9 months. Can you imagine? You're 30 days late on something, but it takes 9 months for your credit score to rebound back to what it was, provided no other factors change on your credit report. That's amazing. Now we move into the 60 to 89 day late field. Now you're playing ball. You're serious. This is not a fire drill. This is the real deal. Now your missed payment has been reported again to the credit bureau. So on top of the previous reporting that happened the prior month for the late payment, you have another reporting for the next month for a late payment again. Also have another late fee being assessed on that account. More than likely, the creditor may not, if at all, be willing to hear anything outside of when will you be making your first payment for this account that is due. In addition to the initial 60 to 110 point drop, you now will see a likely another 30 to 60 point drop on top of the previous for this 60 to 89 day late payment, and the recovery period for a 60-day late is 3 years. So we went from 30 days late, 9-month recovery period. Now you're 60 days late, and it's a 3-year recovery period. I don't know about you, but it's not looking good, and that ski slope is looking pretty steep right now, pretty foggy. Now we move into the 90 to 119 day late category. Now again, your missed payment is being reported to your credit to the credit bureaus, and that's impacting your credit score. You have another late payment assessed. Many of you can probably relate to maybe having that first, second, or third late payment assessed on your account. Likely not going to get the late payments waived. More likely negotiating a payment arrangement, if at all. And the recovery period for a 90-day late is 7 years. Now, I don't know about you, but it's like 90 days late, 7-year recovery period. That's pretty steep, folks. So you have to understand and bear in mind that you want to stay on top of your payments. Like, that's the most challenging thing to do, is to work on repairing your credit report and you're still making late payments. It's like trying to ski up a uphill slope it's not going to work, and it's very hard for people who are in the credit repair, credit restoration profession to work with clients who are not on time with their payments, especially after they've started a credit restoration program. Usually that's where clients end up getting dropped, and it's kind of a breach of contract at that point, because you can't help someone when they're not willing to, or they're not in a position to stay current with what their day-to-day financial obligations are. Now, when you move into that 120 plus day late period, I mean, you definitely have got the battle scars to prove it. This is where you're now assessed another late fee. More than likely the account has been charged off by the original creditor. It has moved into collections if it was either sold or transferred or signed to a collection agency. And this is where you kind of move into that statute of limitations ball field, where depending on the amount that was charged off, you may want to kind of cool your jets with regards to disputing it, because if it is in fact your account and it's a substantial amount, many collection agencies, they will pursue litigation, or they will seek a judgment out against you, where you may find yourself in court, or you may not show up, and a default judgment for that amount has now been levied on you, and now you have a judgment on your credit report on top of the late payments and the collection and the charge off. It just gets really bad really quickly. So you definitely want to be mindful of that and kind of take more of a proactive approach. Now, we've kind of gone over kind of different time frames of what happens to your credit report over time as your late payments progress. The next question naturally would be, well, what are my options? Well, I have a few. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are some things I definitely would recommend for you to do. Some of these things I have actively recommended for my clients, but if you know that you're already down that late payment collection charge-off slope, then I would definitely recommend that you get some sort of credit building resource in your arsenal, and that could be in the form of a secured credit card. Now, there are different forms of secured credit cards out there, but there are some that actually will report more frequently than others to the credit bureau to inject positive trade lines into your credit report. Naturally, it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months for those new accounts to positively impact the damage that was already sustained on your report because of the late payments. But a secured credit card is a great way to start rebuilding and reestablishing healthy credit lines into your credit report or your credit score. In addition to that, please stay current on all your existing other financial obligations, especially those that are being reported to the credit bureaus. You want to stay on top of that, because you don't want a domino effect of one account being negatively impacted to multiple accounts being negatively impacted, and then now you're seeking out perhaps bankruptcy, filing for bankruptcy, because that may be the only option that you see to kind of get you out of this rabbit hole that one has found themselves in. You can start tracking your spending, curbing back on expenses. If you haven't already, a budget is always a great tool. The key is being disciplined when it comes to having a budget. You can also seek out a second source of income, such as a part-time job. You also want to make sure that you contact your creditors. You don't want to run away from the situation. It only makes it worse. You can find that many creditors, they are willing to excuse me, they're willing to work with you in order to get their payments, because it costs more for them to solicit the services of a collection company versus them working out some sort of payment arrangement with you as the account holder for this account. And then also, you can also seek professional services of someone who can assist you based on what your unique credit or financial situations are. They can kind of hold your hand and walk you through that process, and kind of get you from point A to point B, depending on what your goals are and what you're looking to accomplish. I hope that the information shared today was useful. It provided insight into what happens to your credit score over the course of time with regards to late payments, and hopefully some of these options that I've shared with you, you can take action on and hopefully get on that path to recovery with regards to your late payments and getting current again. I look forward to seeing you next week. Stay tuned. I wish you the best. Definitely feel free to check us out. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, and you can definitely follow us on Facebook. I will be posting this video on the YouTube channel, and we're also on Instagram. Remember, last but not least, with healthy credit, life is less expensive. I look forward to seeing you. Take care and have a good weekend.